I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the show on KBLA 80. In the first hour, we are very blessed to have our regular contributor, Dr. Ted Williams III, an educator, actor, author who teaches political science at the City Colleges of Chicago. He's the graduate of graduate of the University of Chicago, Rutgers University, and Northern Seminary. His acting credits include NBC's Chicago PD, Showtime's The Chi, various films, plays, and commercials for companies including Empire Carpet, Cheerios, and Subway. Williams is the former host of WYCC PBS television, The Professors, author of the book The Way Out, Christianity, Politics, and the Future of African American Community, and the creator of the musical theater production 1619, The Journey of a People. Ted Williams, Dr. Williams, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
My brother, good to see you, man. How are you?
It's always a pleasure to see you. So we got some breaking news coming out of the nation's capital that Donald John Trump has said we can expect some profound changes in Chicago next week. What we first witnessed in Los Angeles and the crackdown in the District of Columbia, and boasting 1 week after the crackdown that there's been no homicides in D.C. The president today proudly proclaimed that Chicago is next week. We can expect the beginning of some kind of federal presence. We don't know if it's going to be a significant presence, but share with us, Ted, what your thoughts are on the idea of the federal crackdown in the city of Chicago.
Yeah. So first of all, there are lots of thoughts, as you can imagine. I'm sure all sane people have lots of thoughts about this. When we look at DC is essentially different, obviously. DC is not a part of any state and was essentially under the Home Rule Act for many, many years, or under the Home Rule Act. And so what happened with DC ultimately is that prior to the Nixon administration, essentially DC was ruled with presidential appointment. And so now they have a council and a mayor, that sort of thing. But DC does not have the protection of a state, which, is a big deal. DC has license plates that say no taxation without representation, because ultimately that's exactly where they are right now. And so I would suggest that this kind of action is problematic, a little more problematic with the protections of a state in a place like Chicago. But more importantly than all of that, right? And we could dig into this a little further and talk about posse comitatus and, whether, obviously they have the ability to enforce local laws with federal troops. But what I think is most problematic with this is that crime is down across the country. And President Trump has consistently, and, I know Brandon Johnson, he called Brandon Johnson in this announcement incompetent. It is infuriating, to say the least, that we have a president that is not serious about fixing crime. He is not serious about protecting communities of color. In fact, it really is the opposite. He likes to demonize communities of color and make it so that the rest of the world and the country look at us as a source of all of America's problems. And so Trump, in this divisive rhetoric, is really lying to people, suggesting that putting troops in a city like Chicago or DC, he mentioned New York, he also mentioned Los Angeles and other places, as if this is a long-term solution to crime. Aristotle said that poverty is the parent of crime. And anyone that is serious about getting rid of crime or reducing crime ought to be serious about reducing poverty and inequality at the same time. So we know that this is political theater, brother. And we know that it's the worst kind of political theater because it's the kind of political theater that plays on people's xenophobic fears and demonizes certain groups. And I will tell you, this president, the damage that he's doing, I think might take generations for us to fix.
I think that's right. This is Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Dr. Ted Williams. We're going to take a hard look at the federal crackdown that is taking place in D.C., that's taking place in Los Angeles, and that Donald Trump promises to Chicago next week. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Susan, I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic is terrible.
It sure is. But on top of that, gas prices have been skyrocketing. I can't believe how expensive gas has gotten recently.
Prices at the pump are up, but I never pay full price for gas anymore. I just use the free Upside app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get real cash back every time I buy gas.
And does that actually add up to anything?
I've made around $200.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code GOLD for an extra 25 cents per gallon cash back on your first fill-up. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, to PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code GOLD for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code GOLD for 25 cents per gallon cash back on your first fill-up.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZQL Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZQL Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Some things can steal your sunshine. Ugh, I just got my hair done.
Sorry, the cooler's broken. Anyone see my flip-flops? Anyone?
But COVID-19 can steal a lot more.
I just took a COVID test. Ugh.
Prescription medications for COVID exist. If you test positive this summer, ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit PfizerForAll.com/COVID-19 to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Hey, it's Matt, your leaf filter trusted pro. Gutters are an often neglected part of the home. They're also one of the most important. Clogged, overflowing gutters can cause serious problems like foundation damage or basement flooding, which can cost thousands of dollars to fix. Let's face it, cleaning gutters yourself is not only a hassle, it can be dangerous. But when you get Leaf Filter, you'll never have to worry about cleaning clogged gutters again. Get started today by visiting leaffilter.com/deal to schedule your free inspection. If you decide to move forward, we'll professionally clean, realign, and seal your gutters before installing our patented stainless steel micro mesh system. Leaf Filter keeps out everything but the water. And it's backed by a lifetime transferable no clogs warranty. So you're protected for good. We're in your neighborhood and ready to help. Visit Leaf Filter today for a free inspection and estimate, and you could save up to 30%. Visit leaffilter.com/deal. That's leaffilter.com/deal.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. In this hour, our very first guest is none other than Dr. Ted Williams. Dr. Williams is an educator, expert, author, thinker, and teacher of political science, and he also ran for public office. He ran for city council in the city of Chicago. Dr. Williams, we've seen a crackdown in Los Angeles. We've seen a crackdown in Washington, D.C., and obviously this idea that Donald Trump is coming to Chicago is part of a pattern of cracking down on blue cities where there are African-American mayors. Can we just stop for a moment and comment and let us hear your thinking on the racial categorization of the blue cities that the president appears to be undertaking?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for most of American history, I know that you are a scholar of American history, the federal troops being engaged in local communities when it comes to racial issues has been to protect us, has been to ensure that our civil rights are upheld. We've got many, many examples of this, from riots to post-Reconstruction era policies, that sort of thing. And so what this president really is doing now is he understands the way that race has played into criminality, or the perception of criminality in American politics. As we know, in American politics, perception is reality, right? And so he knows that there are people who do not read statistics or do not really care about the reality of what crime looks like when you look at per capita crime numbers and you see Chicago is not even in the top 20 violent cities in the country based on per capita crime numbers. When you look at a place like DC where violent crime is down 26%, and places like Chicago have also seen decreases in crime. President Trump, I believe, my brother, and I have been very careful to not say these kinds of things, but I really believe that he has a true war against people that look like us. I don't know how you can look at his actions and think anything else. In the same week that he announces this, he also announces that we spend too much time talking about slavery and how bad it was. That places like the Smithsonian ought to stop talking about these things and to try to create a better picture of America, one that does not talk about what has occurred to us and what has placed us in a position in which we have come a mighty long way, but we still have 1/10 the wealth, collective wealth of white America, 1/10. And so anyone who is serious about racial equality would look at these issues and say, what can we do holistically? What can we do to protect? I'm all for protecting people from crime, as I'm sure you are. I'm sure many of your listeners are as well. But I'm not for performance politics or theatrical politics. And I'm not for politics that plays on the fears of white America, assuming that anywhere we go, anywhere we are, these places are violent and they need to be taken over, and that people do no longer deserve civil rights in these spaces. And once again, my brother, we know that in communities that look like the communities that we're talking about across the country, by the way, what does work? Violence interrupter programs, investments in youth, investments in infrastructure. We know these things work. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. But we also know that racism works as well when it comes to the media. And that's what he loves. And he's been playing on since the day he announced he was going to run for office.
Ted, what are they cracking down on?
I'm sorry, what do you mean they're cracking down on?
I mean, Donald Trump is coming to Chicago and going to these cities to crack down on something that's not there. What are they cracking down on?
Exactly. Once again, it's a perception issue. Also, if you think of the National Guard, most of what they've been doing in D.C., they haven't even had arresting authority. They've been supporting local law enforcement, which, by the way, hey, I'm all for supporting local law. When you think about this, right, let's talk about this. And you understand this, once again, having served in Congress, you understand that when you have a country with 300 million people and over 300 million guns, there's a gun for every man, woman, and child in this country, that handguns are used in 70% of all murders in the country. Although we have about 13,000 murders every year, we have close to 20,000 suicides by handgun every year. And so we have a problem, a multifaceted problem with crime. We have easy access to guns. And I don't know how the National Guard fixes that patrolling the streets for 2 weeks. We have a problem of significant inequality and loss of opportunity. We are seeing the destabilization of the social safety net, from things like Medicaid to SNAP benefits. And we're seeing that makes people more likely to commit crime. So you see that you've got a perfect storm, if you will. You see the stress of living in a capitalist system and the tension that people are under. If you just drive down the street in any major city in America, people are overly worked, stressed out, drugged up, and ready for violence in many ways. And so, as you and I have talked about in the past, the idea of a spiritual revolution, if you will, a need for an understanding of our humanity, an understanding of community, but that has to be coupled with good public policy that limits people's ability to hurt one another. And that means gun control. Yes, that means a sensible public policy, set of public policies that make it more difficult for people to get access to weapons that can kill people easily. There is not another industrialized nation in the world that is dealing with this level of gun violence that we are. And if we do not kind of talk about this holistically, then we're just playing games with this crime thing. And I don't know about you, but crime is too serious to me for us to play games with. And I don't want to see performative stuff. If you want, by the way, to send us some support for the police department here in Chicago, please do so. Permanent support. Support that can help us to investigate crimes. Support then also that can provide alternatives for these young people on the streets who many folks are saying that they're worried about. But if you can provide that kind of support as the federal government, I'm all for it. And the last thing I'll say about that is this. Our president speaks about cities like Baltimore and Chicago and DC as if they are not U.S. cities. When he talks about these places, my friend, you are the president of the United States. You are someone who has the ability to support, to come alongside these local government officials and work with them. He's not interested in doing that at all. And in that way, my friend, we can never normalize this presidency, ever. And we can never get exhausted in our outrage, because the moment that we do, what he is doing continues on. And my biggest fear, now this is it, my biggest fear is not just him, but what comes after him. And that is something we should be concerned about.
You began the program by saying that that we are looking at multiple generations in order to address some of the damage that's being done and caused right now. And I agree with that. The multi-generations seems to me that those of us who are in opposition to authoritarianism and the oligarchical behavior of the President of the United States, that we ought to have a democratic alternative, a serious democratic alternative. And I did not say a Democratic Party alternative, but an even stronger response to the idea that we must become a more democratic, egalitarian society, fighting for the right to the highest level of public education in all of our schools of equal high quality, the highest level of healthcare of equal high quality in every one of our communities, the highest level of a clean, safe, and sustainable environment, and obviously equality for women. For that matter, Supreme Court has already shared with us that we do not have the constitutional right to vote. In this country, we enjoy the state right to vote, not the constitutional right to vote. And the states can do with our rights to vote as they may, as they will, or as they choose. It seems to me that in the nation, or maybe even the world's oldest democracy, that we ought be advocating for the fundamental right to vote and make our country a democracy once and for all. Ted, these are difficult and very, very dangerous times. What do you think residents of the city of Chicago can glean or learn from what has taken place in Los Angeles and in Washington? I woke up this morning reading a newspaper article that the FBI has been in the home of John Bolton this morning at 5:30, the former national security advisor to Donald Trump. Donald Trump's campaign of retribution appears to be as serious and as impersonal as it gets.
Yeah. So, it's interesting when you talk about this larger question of democracy. And yes, we have a wannabe petty narcissistic dictator in the White House. We have to also recognize, though, that when you look at, this issue in Texas, for instance, and then what will be happening in California, this idea of voting rights, as you talk about state to state, rather than having a national protection for the right to vote in that way, beyond what occurred in 1965, we have to understand this. We ought to be outraged by the fact that people can redraw districts and knock people out based on their political affiliation or their race. And even though we have to play the game in California, and I'm all for California doing what it has to do as well, because we need to fight fire with fire, there's something fundamentally broken about a democracy, a democratic democracy. I use that word loosely in certain ways. There's something fundamentally wrong with a system of government in which you can pick as a politician the voters that you want to have. And this particular president that we have is, I think, is someone that really enjoys that aspect of what we are dealing with. But if you're talking about moving to a democracy beyond even this moment, those are the kinds of things that we've got to start to do. We've got to take away that ability for legislators to even draw those maps and make them independent, nonpartisan groups that are bipartisan groups that are able to do that. Those are the fundamental things that we have to do to stop another person like this person coming in office. And more importantly, my brother, as you mentioned at the local level, to stop that abuse of power locally, which is much more rampant, I believe, than even what's happening in the federal government. We just don't hear about it very often.
I was listening very carefully to John Lesiotis this week, and you just reiterated, I think, a central point that he made, that this is the first time in modern American history where the people who normally pick their representatives because of this mid-decennial gerrymander out of Texas, now the politicians get to choose their people. That is, they get to look down the street block by block and say, my supporters are here, my supporters are not here. I want you in my district and I want you all out. I am convinced, and I shared that with Gina earlier today, that we are in a very, very cold civil war, but it appears to be getting warmer and warmer. Your thoughts, Professor?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking back at history once again, we are not beyond an actual civil war that is really based on race, class, and inequality. It is the same. We're dealing with the same issues that we're dealing with in the 1800s around these questions of who is an American, what does it mean to be an American, and what are the fundamental rights of a human being in this society. When you live in a society where someone can be snatched up off of the street because they are Latino, when you live in a society that someone can have their right to representation snatched away from them because they're African American, when you live in a society where there's 700 people, 1,000 people, 700,000 people in the District of Columbia who have taxation without federal representation. This is in 2025. The 13th Amendment still allows for slavery today. So, when I was younger, I used to look back and go, man, I wonder what it was like living in the 60s and living in the era where people were fighting for. I'm telling you, and I remember thinking, what would I do? We are living in similar times. And it is so critical that each one of us decides that we are going to be on the right side of history during a time of significant attack to this democracy. Because the truth is, my brother, a lot of what we are used to having, we take for granted. And I believe this time will show whether this democracy will actually survive or not.
Can you share with us in the minute that we have before we go to break the point that you made about the 13th Amendment still allowing slavery?
Absolutely. Very clearly in the 13th Amendment, it says that slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist, except for what? As a punishment for a crime. And we understand that the federal government, they could have easily, by the way, just literally ended the 13th Amendment with that statement. But this was an effort, as we know, to make sure that there was a cheap and free labor source, which capitalism has always survived. If you took away cheap or free labor, capitalism would collapse tomorrow. And so this, I can go through that history after the break, but this is really, in many ways, a continuation of slavery so that the prison industrial complex can make sure that we have labor. And we, on the books, in the Constitution, still allow for this today, which I believe, my brother, is unbelievably tragic.
I find it fascinating that I think Kristi Noem, or the Secretary of Agriculture, said, in exchange for Medicaid benefits, some of our brothers and sisters here in the United States need to go back to the fields, pick cabbage and lettuce and other forms of produce to fill the void left by migrants who are being sent to Alligator Alcatraz and outside the country. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is none other than Professor Ted Williams. When we come forward.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A New York City detective is recovering after being shot while responding to a carjacking of an Uber driver in Queens this morning. The suspect, out on parole and arrested just a day earlier, was taken into custody.
We cannot allow repeated offenders to commit repeated violent acts in our city.
Black Mayor Eric Adams is blaming 2020 bail reform laws for letting the career criminal remain free. Rapper Lil Nas X is in the hospital after being found walking down a Los Angeles street in just underwear and cowboy boots Thursday morning. Police say several people reported it as a possible overdose. And the Maryland Freedom Caucus is facing backlash after its director, Ali Rock, called Governor Wes Moore a, quote, ghetto governor, end quote, in a post about Pimlico Racetrack's demolition. Moore is the nation's only sitting black governor. Maryland Democrats condemn the comment as racist and unacceptable. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Every day, a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. and their weight. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers tuned up for their very important series in San Diego this weekend with a 9-5 win at Colorado. 4 straight win for Clayton Kershaw. 7 players in the Dodgers lineup had at least 1 RBI. The Dodgers needed a dominant win to build some momentum for their 3-game series with the Padres. Game 1 is tonight. The Dodgers lead the Padres by only 1 game in the NL West Division. The Angels are at home tonight against the Chicago Cubs. The Rams and Chargers play their final preseason game on Saturday. The Rams are in Cleveland. They'll face Browns rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders. Sanders is not starting, but Browns coach Kevin Stefanski said Deion's son will see a lot of playing time. The Rams and Browns kick off at 10 a.m. Pacific time. The Chargers wrap up the preseason Saturday night against San Francisco at SoFi Stadium. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm still going for it, even with higher stroke risk from atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. Over a 3-year study, Eliquis apixaban tablets reduced stroke risk better than warfarin, and over 97% of Eliquis patients did not experience a stroke. A first stroke occurred in 2.9% of warfarin patients versus 2.3% of Eliquis patients.
Don't stop prescription Eliquis without asking your doctor. Stroke risk may increase. Eliquis can cause serious and potentially fatal bleeding. Don't take if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or bleed longer. A spinal injection increases blood clot risk, which may cause paralysis. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding or bruising, or back pain, tingling, numbness, muscle weakness, or incontinence. Aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners increase bleeding risk. Tell your doctor about planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
Coverage varies by plan. View contracts and exclusions at EnduranceWarranty.com.
This is an announcement to all United States vehicle owners who own a 2003 or newer vehicle with a manufacturer's warranty about to expire or no warranty coverage at all. With a struggling economy and the cost of living on the rise, Endurance is now offering an affordable, low-cost vehicle coverage plan to the general public. As of today, you could be one of millions of drivers that now may qualify to have your vehicle protected under this coverage and have all future covered auto repairs paid directly to the repair shop for you. You pick your plan. You pick your deductible. You even pick the repair shop. Roadside service, towing, and rental coverage is included. Get your vehicle protected now and save your wallet from costly vehicle repairs. A toll-free number has been established for you to call for your free 5-minute quote and to see if you qualify. The number to call is 800-290-6207. 800-290-6207. Again, that's 800-290-6207.
Chronic migraine, 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more, can make me feel like a spectator in my own life.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for those with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It's the #1 prescribed branded chronic migraine preventive treatment.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Why wait? Ask your doctor, visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com, or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jesse Jackson Jr., where our very favorite actor, teacher, preacher, and Dr. Ted Williams is our very special guest. Ted, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, brother. Always good to be with you.
So, Ted, whenever I have you on the show, I have this series of questions that I try to exhaust. And I thought maybe in this moment, because you are a regular contributor, maybe there's something that you want to chat about.
Yeah, I tell you, man, I am consistently concerned about where we are, and to take a moment to stop talking about the orange narcissist that we got in the White House.
That guy.
There are other things that we have to deal with within this country. My work is in education, but I tell people that my artistic work is education in of itself, and I think a lot about even where our community is and what we are doing and feeding our children on a daily basis through the media. And I have much concern about that. And I think about, heroes of mine like Paul Robeson and folks like Michael Jackson and artists who use their platform, or Miri Baraka, who use their platform to elevate and uplift our people. And I can tell you that one of the other things outside of all the political thing that just burdens is the number of artists and artistic outlets that we have that are not moving us in a better direction. We understand the story of the Pied Piper, not talking about R. Kelly, but the actual real story of the Pied Piper, where you take music and you walk through a village and the children will just follow. And so part of our, Malcolm X said that we don't have the luxury to fight on just any one front. In the battle for freedom, we have to fight on all fronts. Along with our outrage politically, along with our civic engagement, we must be people that put forward good fruit into our communities. And so I can tell you that, a lot of the work that we're doing is trying to make sure that we're putting forth positive messages, where we're taking Black history and putting it to songs so that kids can hear and they can remember who Booker T. Washington was and W.E.B. Du Bois and people like that through the lyrics, because they have the ability to memorize all of this music that is really deleterious right now in our society. So that's one of the things that, as a person of African descent, I am so concerned with. And I will say, my brother, is really a byproduct of the culture that we've been given in this anti-Black society that has essentially said to us that we should be happy, historically living in slums and living in poverty and not having access to high quality foods and high quality housing and high quality education, and has really created a culture that we're now seeing the fruit of. And this is an American culture. All the guns and violence. Your father used to say this all the time, and I used to hear him say it, that we don't manufacture one gun in our community. We don't make any weapons in our community. And so we are not responsible for creating these conditions that we find ourselves in. But I do believe that we have something to do with changing it, and the government does as well. And so I'm always thinking about our people and thinking about what we can do on our end to elevate ourselves morally, spiritually, intellectually. The government has a responsibility, but I also know that we've got some fighting to do within our own doors as well to try to get us to another level.
Ted, I was reading had a really interesting conversation the other day with Johnny Mack, who is our Thursday contributor on the World House. And I was reminded of something that Martin Luther King Jr. said about how those of us who advance the righteousness of our causes, we often become bitter, that our spirits become profoundly challenged because maybe the change we seek does not occur fast enough. Maybe our all-in approach doesn't have the correct balance between love of God, love of self, and love of neighbor, a perfect equilateral triangle. Some folk love God so much they don't care for their neighbor. Some people love their neighbor so much they have no room for the divine. And while loving their neighbor and loving God, or God and neighbor at the same time, they find no time for themselves in the equilateral triangle in terms of their own health, their own maintenance, both physically and spiritually and emotionally. And I'm wondering, when you interact with these students, do you sense that this equilateral triangle exists, or is it mostly a concern that's otherworldly, God, a concern for other people? That's obviously noble. But the lack of self care is also part. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love one God. Look at that triangle. Love one God with all of your heart, soul, and mind. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And that triangle is not obtuse, it is equilateral.
You know, what I find with students, I really appreciate you sharing that, but what I find with students oftentimes is, particularly in Gen Z, students that I interact with, they have been grown up in a generation and a world in which the divine and the connection to the divine has been ancillary at best. That they see those who are focused on the material do success, have success and do well in the world. And they also recognize that, violence and selfishness and greed actually prosper you, unfortunately, in the society. And so the conversation around their spiritual lives is difficult, and yet it's the eternal battle that we all face. And ultimately, I think, as the scriptures teach us, what good is it for a man to gain the whole world yet lose a fourth of his soul? We recognize that many of them, when they get to that end and they become successful, if they get that opportunity to do so, they realize that it really is empty. But so as I have spent a lot of time with these students, and what I realize is that there is a crisis of identity. They have no idea who they are, and because they have no idea who they are, they have no idea what their place is in the world. Now, what in what you use as the example, as the triangular example, I would suggest that maybe love of self or a desire to love self is probably the only place that they get to. In many of their spaces, and that love for neighbor and those sorts of things come later, because we also live in a society in which, when our society sees someone in pain in their generation, they have been taught that the way to benefit themselves in some way is to, rather than helping a person, is to videotape them, right? So you see fights and those sorts of things, and that is kind of what has been given credit and promoted and supported in our society. So I am not hopeless about our young folks. I realize we are dealing with some significant problems. Now, what I do think works, and has never changed, is mentorship. This one-on-one, the way that Jesus touched people on an individual level, and grabbed them, right, and told Zacchaeus to come down, and he put his hand on people. He touched lepers and touched people. He the adulterous woman, he talked to her and gave her love for the first time. We can still do those things with these young folks, and that honestly is what excites me every day. That's why I do the work that I do, because you would be amazed at just how a simple conversation and a simple "I see you, I recognize you, I understand you, I'm with you" will change everything for these folks. And so we got to be doing that. And unfortunately, we cannot wait for an outside force to do that. They have proven time and time again. We've been here for 406 years now. August 20th, 1619, 20 enslaved Africans arrived on the shores of Point Comfort, Virginia, on a Dutch ship. And they, 406 years ago. So it's been proven over and over. And I'm Gen X as well, and I grew up, in the 80s and 70s and 80s, and seeing, all of us get on in the 90s as well, and all of us get on TV and the Cosby Show, and I thought we'd made it somewhere. The reality is we have to continue to fight, because the country has never done right by us, and we can't wait for them to do so.
You're listening to Dr. Ted Williams on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. He's an actor, teacher, and a preacher. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Dr. Williams when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Become a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Get free and confidential information on immigration and citizenship. Visit lapl.org/NAI to find your nearest library or call us at 213-228-7390. That's lapl.org/NAI or 213-228-7390 and start your path to becoming a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Call 213-228-7390 or visit lapl.org/NAI.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least liked to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy. In 2011, I founded Wesley Financial Group with one goal in mind, to help honest folks out of their timeshares permanently. Today, I run Wesley with my 2 sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we'd want our own family treated. That philosophy has helped us grow into the largest, most trusted timeshare cancellation company in the United States. Fortune magazine even recognized us as one of the best places to work. Why? Because we genuinely care. In fact, some of our former clients were so moved by their experience working with us, they joined our team so they could help others to timeshare freedom. If you're stuck in a timeshare, give us a call. Let our family help your family.
Call Wesley now for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-687-7979. That's 800-687-7979. 800-687-7979.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Got to tell the story. Tell a story. Give you all the glory. Give you all the glory. Sing praises to you only. Oh, yeah. When no one seems to care. When no one seems to care.
I'm Jesse Jackson. You're looking forward to Jesse Jackson Jr. For our very special guest in this hour has been none other than Dr. Williams is an actor, a preacher, a professor, and just generally knowledgeable on multiple topics. But I'm particularly grateful that he is a historian and he's my friend. Dr. Williams, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Dr. Williams, in this moment, before we get obviously to your word of hope, I do have a question for you because I've been looking for books regarding the end of First Reconstruction before Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896, and before the Tilden Hayes Compromise. That brief moment between the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment when what Martin Luther King Jr. referred to in the I Have a Dream speech as the light of daybreak from the long night of our suffering captivity. And I've been trying to find books on what the reaction, what the spirit energy said about the end of First Reconstruction, and they've been very, very difficult to channel. Certainly there's the souls of Black folks, and there's some other contemporary books written, but I think I know what happened. I think now that coming out of our loyalty to Lincoln, because we were Republicans at the end of slavery, out of loyalty to that president and his death, we had wed ourselves to a political party, the Republican Party of Abraham Lincoln. In fact, Martin Luther King Sr. was a Republican, a Lincoln Republican, Dr. King's daddy. But when the federal protection was removed from the South in the Tilden Hayes Compromise, and the Democratic Party of slaveholders and Confederates sought to regain their edge, we were still loyal to the Republican Party of Lincoln, even though we as a people were without federal protection in the slave states. Today, we are particularly loyal to the Democratic Party. How the party switched is one thing. I've written about it extensively. But we are particularly loyal to the Democratic Party. And in that loyalty, Newsom says he will withdraw his state. Other Democrats have said they will redraw their states. But what these Democrats have failed to acknowledge until recently, and I got to give credit to Governor Pritzker, who has acknowledged it. Wait a minute, pump the brakes. To redraw these states is to overturn the Voting Rights Act of 1965. We are so into stopping Trump and fighting Trump and joining the Democratic Party. The one thing that the Democratic Party has put on the chopping block by definition is no longer defending the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Now, there are plenty of Democrats that are going to challenge me for saying that. But if you listen to the rhetoric very carefully, they're fighting for Democratic seats. And if they lose Black representatives in Congress or in state legislatures, given the gravity of this moment, that is secondary to their goals to stop Donald Trump. Work with me right here, Dr. Williams.
Yeah, so you have couched this moment in history very well. And many folks, I was just listening to one of our Congress folks, I won't say who, just because there may be some disagreement there. I'll tell you when we get offline. But there was this argument I heard just 2 days ago that the means justify the end, that we have to fight fire with fire. And I'm torn, my brother, because on the one hand, I fully agree with the idea that if we do this, then in many ways we are negating much of the work that was done to get the Voting Rights Act passed and also to put forth a fair and free system. And yet we recognize that whether we play fairly or not, they're going to play how they play. Now, I will tell you that when it comes to the Democratic Party, I've thought a lot about this as well and written about this also. I don't think that African Americans have any particular affinity for the Democratic Party per se. I think what African Americans have seen, particularly post-Reagan era, is a Republican Party, actually really Nixon as well, but a Republican Party that could care less about them. Actually, if you look back at the '08 election, when Obama was elected, in the primary of that election, Mike Huckabee, a Republican, got 40% of the he received 40% of the African American vote in Arkansas. So when he ran for governor and then he ran for president in '08, 40% as a white preacher from Arkansas. See, I've always been of the mind that if the Republican Party put up halfway decent candidates that were not overtly racist, they would actually do very, very well.
Interesting.
But they can't help themselves.
Is that because of our natural conservative instinct as a people, that if those candidates were put up, we might be attracted to them?
Absolutely.
But to your point, they can't help themselves.
They can't help themselves. So particularly a candidate coming out of the church, Black folks, we're down. We're fully down. James Tallarico is a great example of this now in the Democratic Party. He's a state rep in Texas, and he's very faith-based, and African Americans love him. But see, here's the deal. When Mike Huckabee got to the national stage, he started talking about the Confederate flag and how much he supported it. So the Republican path to getting us back is actually a very simple path. But they have to do the thing that they have been unwilling to do since the beginning of this country, that particular group, whether they're Republican or Democrat, and that is to denounce this history of racism, to renounce it, and to move forward in a way like the Germans did with Nazi Germany, where you cannot fly a Nazi German, you can't fly a Nazi flag. They've got to deal with this ugly history, and many white Americans are unable to let this go. And in that way, the Republicans will get what they deserve.
Ted, we have about 2 minutes before we say goodbye to the week. And before we welcome Gina Towns on Fat Meat Fridays, Ted, a word of hope.
Mentorship, as I shared, my brother. Each one must reach one, and each one must teach one. I think, and I see this every day, that when people are engaged in criminality or deviant behavior, there's a story there. There's a reason there. Most of these kids that you see picking up a gun at 13, abused at 4, 5, and 6. And so if we can reach out to people, and we may not be able to save them all. Michael Jackson has a song that he sang when he was about 11. Said, I could do great things. He said, maybe I can't change the world in one day, but we all can essentially change the world. This is actually a precursor to Man in the Mirror, by the way. I'll share the song. I know you're a fan as well. I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan. But he wrote this song that essentially says that we can do small things in our small way, is what the song is called. And if we can reach a few people here and there, I think we can change the world.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Listen to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, it will be Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns. Dr. Williams, thank you for joining us on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Blessings to you, brother. Have a great, great day.
Can't wait to see you. Until next week, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More with Gina Towns when we come forward.